This novel is narrated by the dead. You must put these dreams aside, they will only break your heart. This is a really weird fact about me, but as a child, I must have gone to I don't know how many funerals. Okay, I think the sirens have stopped. Welcome, how you doing? My name's Emma. You might know that. If you don't know that, if this is your first time here, hi. Plop yourself down. Plop your butt down on a nice, soft, cushy chair. Because we're going to talk about books. I am in a very chatty, nice mood. I am so happy that I finally feel like I have created a place in my apartment that is now going to be like my filming place. I'm loving how the bookshelves look in the bedroom, and I'm just really happy about it. So I read, it was a weird month, okay, in terms of the different genres and things that I read. I did find a couple new favorite books, which is really exciting. I also didn't read as much in the month of November because I did read 300 pages of a Charles Dickens book. I read 312 pages of Dombey and Son, which is actually going really well. As you can see, I am just loving it. I'm so happy that it just feels like Dickens is like, he's here in this book. His presence is wonderful, and I am loving this. So this is a 900-page book. I will be finishing this in December for the Dickens versus Tolstoy book club. There'll be some very exciting news coming soon about it, and we will be having our much long overdue live show for our Tolstoy short stories, as well as Martin Chuzzlewit by Dickens. The information for that will be in the description box. But yeah, I read 300 pages of that, which is pretty much a book in itself, but I did really like it, so it's going well. But in terms of things that I actually did read, this one I finished last night, so right in the nick of time. This is a book that I haven't picked up since high school. I first read it in high school. I love it. And it was even better. It was even better the second time around. 5 stars. Can I just say that I had 3 5-star reads this month? That's crazy. 3 5-star reads. That like never happens. This was a reread, albeit, but A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin is a dearly beloved book in this household, as you can see. Carolyn, when she visited in September, she bought the book here in Toronto and started reading it. I saw how much fun she was having, and I was like, I need to get in on that, and so I picked it up, but I didn't end up finishing it until last night, and it was so fun reading it alongside her, who's reading the series for the first time. If you are unfamiliar with A Game of Thrones, I can't help you. I'm not going to tell you the plot, but this is epic fantasy, and it is a joy to read. The intricacy, the relationships between all of the characters, it's just something that is so immersive, and more than that, I've never had a fantasy where I just feel so many emotions in my chest reading it, to the point where some days I'm like, I just don't want to pick that up because I know it's going to make me so angry, whether that's the fate of certain characters, the actions of other ones, or just the overall essences of some people in this book. What I found on my reread is that the writing is actually in certain parts really beautiful. I think because I read it in high school, like I didn't really have, you know, a good somewhat worldly experience with literature, but diving back into A Game of Thrones, I was like, wow, this man can write. Like, he can really write, and it was such a joy to read. So easy to read. Wonderful. If you haven't picked up A Game of Thrones, or if you've watched the TV show, please pick up the series. It's infinitely better, infinitely more detailed, descriptive, sumptuous. Also, there was a line in here last night that I was reading that just broke my heart. It's from Maester Luwin, and he says to Bran, "You must put these dreams aside, they will only break your heart." I don't know why that kicked me in the chest last night, but it did. Least favorite chapters to read from in here, definitely Dany. I don't like reading Dany's chapters. I feel really bad about that, but I just don't. I also don't like reading Arya's chapters. I don't really like reading Sansa's chapters that much. I love reading Catelyn's chapters, Rob's, Ned's, like Catelyn, Rob, and Ned. I think those are my favorite 3 chapters. Jon is like 50-50 with his chapters. Tyrion is, yes, the political plot lines in this, they're just really what I get the most enjoyment out of. So 5 stars. I cannot wait to read the rest of the series. I don't know when the heck that's gonna happen, but so happy I read this. And I do think this is a really good winter read as well if you're looking for a new, cozy, big fantasy book to curl up with. A Game of Thrones. Then, out of the blue, I decided to pick up a book from the shelves that I have had for the longest period of time. How did this book even come into my possession? I think it must be a thrifted find, but it's now one of my favorite books of all time, and that is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. Incredible, astounding, gloriously beautiful, just gloriously beautiful. This was such like almost a perfect novel in my opinion. This did get a 5 stars for me, mostly just because of like the ideas, the writing, and like just the feeling that you can really feel the author grappling with these ideas herself. I didn't know until a bunch of you commented on my video that she was actually writing this at a time after the death of her daughter, and so a lot of the sentiments that our main character Louis, who becomes a vampire in this book, he gets turned into a vampire by a different vampire named Lestat. They were actually emotions and questions that she was trying to find answers to herself, and this became like her battleground slash playground for experimentation, for searching, for longing, and just for help. You could really feel that, and it was just so powerful. This is a vampire telling his life story from Louisiana in the 1700s all the way until San Francisco in the 80s. As you can see, yeah, this is the kind of book that, if you like Angela Carter, pick this up. If you like beautiful writing, pick this up. If you like really big debates and discussions about philosophy, existentialism, love, religion, death, morality, all of that, this is totally the book for you. Our main character, Louis, is just so... Okay, so here's this thing. He's become a vampire, and he's like, why? Like, who am I? What am I? What is my purpose? What is my relationship now as an immortal being to God, to heaven and hell, to death? Like, what makes me have the power to kill mortals as I do? Like, what gives me the right? And so he's trying to find these answers while his companion Lestat is just wholly not concerned in this world. He's like, humans are just weak, they're made to die, don't care about these answers, like, you're gonna live for forever, like, why are you searching for answers to what your relationship is with like deities and religion? Of course, their companionship changes when they're both implicated. They both decide in different ways to transform this young 5-year-old, I think she's 5-year-old girl into a vampire. Her name is Claudia. And of course, this comes with a lot of consequences. This was just really a vampire story like no other vampire story. It's the best vampire book I've ever read. It really, it's not just like entertainment value. It's really discussing like, hey, if you actually get turned into a vampire and now your job, your way of nourishing yourself is to take away all form of nourishment, all form of life from another living thing, what does that do to you? If you live for forever, what does that do to you? Ask, like, how many vampires do you think have the stamina for immortality? All things change except the vampire himself. Everything except the vampire is subject to constant corruption and distortion. It also really hits on the changes of the centuries, like what that does to you. Lestat finds himself falling behind the time, not being able to catch it up again. And it's just such a nostalgic book that, like, whatever style or fashion or shape of existence made immortality attractive to him has been swept off the face of the earth, and nothing remains to offer freedom from despair except the act of killing. I also love how dramatic and intense this book was. It's just like the kind of book where you can say gut-wrenching, emotionally packed punches and not have it come off as like sounding trite or cliche. Like, you have a love affair with damnation, or I am evil with infinite gradations and without guilt. This book destroyed me. It's so tragic. It's so haunting. I will be thinking about this book for such a long time. Our eyes met. I wish the world were not one black empty ruin of ashes and death. I wished it were fresh and beautiful, and that we were both living and had love to give each other. Anyway, so that is Interview with the Vampire. One of my biggest recommendations to you, honestly. I don't know why I waited so long to pick this up, but 5-star, new favorite. Love it with my entire being. Really quickly, a nonfiction book that I read. I listened to this in audio, actually. This was a gift from Linda. Thank you so freaking much. That is Cleopatra, A Life by Stacy Schiff. As you might imagine, this is a biography about Cleopatra. I was really hesitant to get into this because I feel like I haven't been in the right mindset or a good enough mindset, a focused enough mindset to really digest and listen to and consume nonfiction. I feel like it's just been requiring a bit more work, but Stacy Schiff's writing pulls you in. Like, it's a really wonderful, yes, it's academic, but it's also really easy to listen to. I would 100% recommend the audiobook if you do want to pick this up, because it's narrated by Robin Miles, and she's one of my favorites. She's one of my favorite audiobook narrators. Her voice is just the kind of voice that once you hear it, it makes you want to drop everything and just listen to her. Like, it's that powerful, it's that entrancing, and it's just, she has a really nice way with pronouncing things, with inflecting things, and I love her to pieces. So I ended up really enjoying this. I already knew a lot of things. I feel like I don't talk about it too much anymore. It's kind of something that is still very much a sad, tender part of my life, but I used to be pursuing a minor in classical studies alongside my major in English literature. So ancient Greece, ancient Rome, that was my jam. I've taken so many courses at uni about these things. I actually took a course all about the Roman emperors. It was just solely focused on the Roman emperors, and it did start with Caesar, even though, you know, Augustus was the first emperor. But so I did already know a bunch of things in here, but I didn't really know that much about Cleopatra because she is such like a icon that is misconstrued and used to the point where all real identity of hers pretty much wiped. So Stacy Schiff really gives it her best to piece the life of this woman who is so much more than she's been made to be by sources, by people, by history, by fame, popular culture, celebrities, what have you. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. So this does go from her childhood all the way to her demise, and it's filled with a wealth of information, and like I said, a really easy listening experience. So yeah, really like this, would highly recommend, and I will definitely be looking into more of Stacy Schiff's biographies because she's written a number of them. I know she has one on Salem. I'm not sure if it follows, yeah, I guess it follows the people who were convicted in Salem, and then we have one on Benjamin Franklin, we have one on Nabokov's wife, and we also have one on Saint-Exupéry, the writer who wrote A Little Prince. So anyway, another recommendation. Then we have one that I definitely did not love as much. This is probably my least, no, it's not my least favorite read of the month, but it's down there. And that is The Gatewatch by Joshua Gillingham. This is a gorgeous book. Look at this. This is a book that's very much inspired by Norse mythology and the Icelandic sagas. The things I didn't like about this book, I felt like I had no opportunity to really get into the story. I was not connected with any of the characters. I didn't care. This book, deriving so much of itself from like myth and the saga, it feels very episodic. It feels like one action sequence leads into another where things are just forever happening. The people talk in very formulaic ways, and much like The Hobbit as well, this book is riddled with poetry compositions, riddles, games of riddles, verses, people composing songs and stories. So if you like that, I would recommend, but for me this just didn't really work on a number of levels. We do follow Torrhen Tentries and his two companions who are trying to join the Gatewatch, which is a group of people who are troll hunters because trolls are ravaging the lands, and these people need to hunt them down to protect, you know, their well-being and their livelihood and everything. Torrhen and his friends get captured by trolls, and there they discover that this big, bad, giant king named Usgebrukter, thank you very much, is plotting to take down the entire Gatewatch and everything that they hold dear. So they go on a quest to stop him. This just felt like, you know exactly where it's going, you know exactly what's going to happen. It wasn't exciting. I found it really dry, really boring. It did not catch my attention in any way, shape, or form. The writing was quite static, I feel like. I did like the inspiration behind it, but overall, not one that I would really highly recommend. I did give it like a generous 3 stars, but honestly it's probably more like 2.75 or something. So unfortunately, that is The Gatewatch. But then we do have an Icelandic book that I loved. I did give this 5 stars, and that is Heaven and Hell by Jan Kalman Stephenson. This is so good. This was so good. This was so good. This book also took me a really long time to read. I think it was so affecting, and it really has just stayed with me. I had no idea, because here's the thing, I finished this book and I was like, what the hell is this ending? I was really disappointed. I was like, what the heck is this? Like, the whole book was gearing up to be 5-star material, and then it ended, but that's because I didn't know when I picked it up that it is in fact a trilogy, I think, so it does go on. So I was like, okay, you know what, I have to give it back its 5 stars because this was fantastic. The writing in Heaven and Hell is exquisite. It's something I've never really seen before, because this novel is narrated by the dead. It's narrated by like the dead collective, a collective of death, souls that they've died, but they're still here, they're still among the living. We can't see them, but they are watching us perpetually. And the story does focus on this young boy. He doesn't have a name, or he does have a name, but we don't know it, and his friend. They're both in a fishing group going out, very, very treacherous. It's like, deadliest catch, to go and catch cod in the freezing ocean. Tragedy occurs when they do go out one day, and from then on the boy is like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I can't be here. I need to leave. So he takes it upon himself to deliver a certain book back to an old sea captain who has an enormous library, because the young boy and his friend are very much obsessed with reading, language, poetry. Well, in this time period, I think it's set in the 19th century. Everyone else is like, why are you wasting your time reading? And I guess, I'll just tell you, the book that he's returning is Paradise Lost, and Paradise Lost itself does have to do a lot with the story, which is so cool because I love Paradise Lost. But this was so beautiful. I can't describe to you how different of a writing style Jan Kalman Stephenson has in here, because it's just so cool. Okay, so the front, this is like so apt. It says, like a long breath from the depths of the sea. Yes, it just feels like this book is one long exhalation of breath, and it was so beautiful, riddled with so many quotes that I had to underline. I loved the style of telling the story in here. I think it worked so well, and it was so wonderful. And of course, heaven and hell, like this book, for these people living in this time period in Iceland, like their lives are extremes. You go from one extreme to the other. You're dashed from heaven, hurried down to hell, and then you're back up again. Anyway, so good. Grief, friendship, poetry, language, all of that. If any of that is your jam, this book does it exceptionally well. So highly recommend. Okay, and then in November I actually got to read 2 books on my Kindle. Very happy about that, because it's been a while since I read books on my Kindle, but I really did not like one, and then the other one was just okay. So here's the thing, I'm totally not the person to go to for recommendations for like books on Kindle Unlimited or just romance in general. It's not my strongest point of recommending books, but I am trying to get better at it. So I have been going through a few more Kindle Unlimited books. These are actually both recommendations from Olivia over at Olivia Reads a Latte. I love her. So the first one was There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. Really hated this. This is like about 2 rival serial killers. It's like dark romance, I guess you would categorize it as, but it just was really not good. I don't think I have to say anything more about it. And then the other one was Blind Side. This was the first sports romance I've ever read, I think. I don't think I've ever read a sports romance, but it's a college sports fake dating romance. Got it. I thought this was actually kind of cute. There were some really cute moments in this. We follow this girl who has never had a boyfriend. She's in college. She works in like media studies, I think. And then our love interest in here is on the football team, and he has just been dumped by his girlfriend, and so they make a pact because she wants to get her first boyfriend, and of course he wants to win his ex-girlfriend back, so they start fake dating. I don't think I've actually ever read a proper fake dating book outside of The Love Hypothesis, which I didn't like. I liked Blindside so much more, but once again, like I have really nothing to compare them to, so do not really take me at my word for either of these, but I did think Blindside actually had some really cute moments that were kind of nice. So anyway, those are the 2 books I read on my Kindle, and then the last book I read in November, loved this one. So pleasantly surprised. I did buy this with high hopes, and it didn't disappoint, and that is Aggie Morton, Mystery Queen, Book 1, The Body Under the Piano by Marthe Jocelyn. Love this. I actually bought this in Toronto before I ever moved here, and then I just picked it up. I read half of this. I listened to half of this on audiobook, and then my audiobook got snatched back by the public library because, I didn't listen to it in time, but then I just finished it myself physically because I obsessed with this. The atmosphere is just gorgeous. Here's the problem. And it's not a problem with my enjoyment or love for this book at all, because I adored this. I will 100% be picking up more in the series, but the problem with this book is that this is a middle grade novel, and this does not have a lot of ratings or reviews on Goodreads. I don't think it's a really popular one, and I think it's because I feel like it really should have been marketed or aimed towards a bit of an older audience. I know 100% if I was the middle grade age, which I don't really know what that is. My parents were quite strict. I don't think I would have been allowed to read this because like it is honestly pretty gruesome. Our main character Aggie, this is of course inspired by Agatha Christie and Hercule Poirot, because we have Aggie who meets a friend who's just come over from Belgium, and his name is Hector Perot. As I was saying, the problem with this book is definitely, I think that maybe a lot of parents would be like, maybe you shouldn't read that book because it is about gruesome, awful, morbid things. But for me, it was so nostalgic. I loved Aggie so much. I really did love her so much. I identified with her so much because she is a very shy girl, but she's so morbid. She finds that she can communicate a whole lot better writing than speaking to people. Her father has recently passed away and she's dealing with grief, and so when she finds a body under the piano in her dance studio, where this woman in the neighborhood named Mrs. Eversham, who no one likes, she's like the cranky old neighborhood lady that everyone secretly wishes would just drop dead, but she does actually drop dead, and it's revealed that she is poisoned. Aggie's like, this is my time to shine. I have such a soft spot for Aggie in my heart. Aggie in here also has a really interesting relationship with her grandmother, and it's so fun to see like her grandmother kind of like being the only one really to encourage like the morbid preoccupations that young girls are not supposed to have, and her going out and like doing things and like actually speaking about stuff that is like definitely in this time period, since this is set in the Victorian period, considered taboo and not really talked about. But even now, no one really wants to talk about death or the weird surgeries you're having on your foot, or you know, gross medical things. But when I was little, my grandma would watch me a lot of the time when my parents were working, and because my grandma worked as the church secretary for her church, she would have to oversee all of the funerals that went on, and so because she was babysitting me at the time, I would have to go to so many funerals. This is a really weird fact about me, but as a child, I must have gone to I don't know how many funerals, all for people I didn't know. I must have been like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, seeing dead people in caskets. You know, my parents would drop me off, they'd go to work, and then for me it would be like time to go to a random person's funeral. Did it do things to me? I don't know. I think it actually gave me a better relationship with death. Not only that, but then my grandma would take me, because she's just literally an angel, would take me to nursing homes all over the city. She had friends or even people she didn't know. She would just go and sit with them and talk with them and spend time with people in nursing homes. And of course I was taken along because she was watching me. As a child, I would sit with and talk with people who were dying, to put it bluntly, and just, you know, talk to them and see them and just like interact with them and like have that knowledge from a very early age. And then on top of that, like the friends that my grandma did have who weren't in nursing homes, you know, they're all who knows how old, but we'd all go out for lunch, and then over lunch, like at a buffet, I just have so many vivid memories of all of them talking about all of the surgeries they were having, like all of the horrible medical things that were happening to them as they aged, which, you know, they all dealt with so gracefully, but no one really had any reservations when, you know, you're trying to eat jam on toast, talking about the very invasive procedures they had or the news their doctor's telling them. I really just felt like I finally had a book where like my childhood was like a little bit this is so weird. This was my childhood. A part of it was like kind of represented in here, and she had such a good relationship with her grandmother. I'm actually really thankful for being this is weird rant now and just telling you some parts of my secret backstory, but just very thankful actually for being taken to so many funerals, taken to see so many elderly people who were not having a good time, who were having to accept the fact that they were going to pass from the world, and of course hearing about so many things that most people are not comfortable talking about ever, and least of all at the dinner table. So I just felt like this was such such a perfect book that I think little Emma would have enjoyed. Aggie has a very overactive imagination of imagining, you know, different ways to kill someone, different ways to die, and she is, of course, going through it all, trying to accept her father's death. So I just really appreciated this book, but on top of that, I will say the mystery was fun. The atmosphere was stunning. It was so cozy. If you're looking for a cozy mystery, like, kind of just ignore the fact that this is middle grade, because other than the fact that we have, you know, a child protagonist, I would say just proceed as normal, because this is it was so good, and I really can't wait to pick up more in the series. I love this so much. I thought it was funny, it was charming, and the author actually lives in Ontario, in Stratford, and I even have family in Stratford. I don't know, this was just like a nice little book to me. Loved it. 4 stars, maybe 4.5, but yeah, this is my favorite middle grade I've read in such a long time, so highly recommend. Now I've just talked too much about being taken to see corpses as a child, so with that, I'm gonna log off. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for putting up with me, and I hope you had a really good reading month. Like always, like on every dang video, I always ask this. Are you annoyed of it yet? I don't know. Can I know your favorite book of the month? Is that okay? Could I possibly know? I would love to know. Would love to know. Or your least favorite book as well, because then I could know what books to steer clear of too. So I'm gonna say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. You guys mean the absolute world to me, as always and forever. So until the next one, ciao.